Hey, how everybody doing tonight? Hotep, Uncle Jah and Kev. Assalamu alaikum. Peace, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another live broadcast of the Jah and Kev show. I am Jah, and my man over here is Kev, and we are so excited to be here tonight. I'm so glad to be back in the lab with this brother so we can talk about a subject matter that a lot of us have shunned. We all involved in them, but we want to talk about them tonight from an intelligent perspective. And the name of this broadcast tonight is Building Relationships. So you better call your friends, call your loved ones, you call someone, because we're going to talk about what that actually means. We're going to get into the details and the intricacies of when we say building relationships. What does that all entail? But I want to first of all start off by asking this brother Kev, before we talk about when we can be seen and all that, I want to just dive into it, and somewhere during the broadcast we'll tell you how you can check us out every time we come on. But talk to me, man. Building relationships, what is that all about, man, to you?
Well, I think building relationships, to me, I guess we're talking about not just personal relationships. We got personal relationships. We got relationships with between groups.
Okay.
You know, and when we build relationships, that means strengthening and connecting with someone and strengthening it from there. Strengthening the relationship that you have with somebody, and then being able to have a relationship and connect with people and not alienate someone, you know, whether it's your personal relationship or it's a non-personal relationship.
Right. And I think this subject matter has to be had, because basically we're looking at this connection between groups and between people. And we know that there are like common types of relationships. When you talk about the family relationships, you talk about the friendship relationships, then there's the romantic relationships, there's the work relationships. We look at the community relationships and also the professional relationships. But in order to make all of those work, there has to be some ingredients that we have to put into this thing. So I know you have some ingredients, I have some ingredients, and I hope some of the audience have ingredients. So please just comment or call us up, and we'll talk about, you know, what you guys have as to how do we build relationships. That's a big question. What's one of the ingredients that you said, hey, Jah, I got to talk about this one?
Yeah, I think respect is in the forefront. I think you put respect when you're trying to have a relationship with someone. And if you want that relationship to grow and build and strengthen it, you have to exemplify respect in and out. It's going to be disagreements or, you know, things that's going to, you know, irk you about something, or maybe that other person, but you have to have it in a respectful manner. You have to maintain the respect throughout the relationship.
That's both parties?
Yeah, both parties. I mean, well, I'm saying like this. Say if the other person, and I'm trying to have this relationship, and I feel like they're disrespectful. It doesn't build anything for me to go back at them the same way that I feel that they're coming at me. A lot of times that's what we do. And I think what you do is you maintain the respect, and then you could tell them, you know, throughout this whole conversation, I never said anything derogatory about your beliefs or how you feel about that situation. I'm trying to understand, and I'm trying to respect the fact that you have an opinion about something or whatever it is, however it's coming across. But not once have I disrespected you. Then that's going to make them sometime back up. But if you feel like they're disrespecting you, and then you come back and you try to disrespect that person in some type of way or fashion that you feel is trying to hurt them, then it's going to be just a back and forth, and you're not building anything.
Right. And that's why a lot of our relationships aren't flourishing now, because of the disrespect and the lack of respect. Because sometimes when we get in relationships, we assume certain things about people. But yet when you look at it, when it all boils down, is do you respect that person? Are you going to treat them in a civil manner, even if you disagree, even if you have qualms with that person? And sometimes, especially as a people, we don't always do that. We tear down relationships, but we're talking about build them up, building up relationships, and that's one of the things that we must have.
And one thing you said, one thing is being disrespectful. Another thing is you're not basically being disrespectful. You're just not showing respect. You're not respecting them, and those are two different things. And another thing is I heard people say we can disagree without being disagreeable, and that's mainly what we're talking about. Also, you could say, "Well, I don't believe that." And I respect what you're saying. Right. I understand that that's what you believe, but that's not for me. But if you come at it, man, that sounds stupid. Right. Or what you're saying, you know what, you losing your mind. You know, when somebody say that to someone else that's voicing their opinion about something, you can just say, you can listen to it and you can show respect by not saying it, but just showing respect by considering what they're saying and their position on why they're saying it. And you can ask questions. So why do you say that? What make you say that?
Right.
So do you think this, this, and this? And that shows that you are actually concerned about their opinion, and you may not agree with it at all, but you can say, I'll just, you know, I'm curious to why you believe that, or why do you say that? Then you have a logical discussion, and so now you're having a discussion, a conversation, and you're actually communicating, because you could have a conversation without communicating. We could have a conversation and you could have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Right. Then we're not communicating. Right. You could say, well, we're having a conversation, but I don't understand. So you find a way to have communication.
Wow, you're putting a lot of traps in this thing, Kevin. This is good. But, you know, when we talk about this ideal of building relationships, we must treat each other with kindness, man. We have to show kindness. We have to show consideration. And that's in whether it's a romantic relationship or just friendship. We have to show each other that we're valuable, that we care. We must cherish the relationship. In other words, I do this broadcast with you every 2 times a month. That's for this people that didn't get to hear the plug from this earlier today. This broadcast can be seen every Tuesday, every first and third Tuesday of the month at 6:30 Central Standard Time. We want you to subscribe to this. But, you know, I can't take you for granted, man. I can't just say, well, you know, every Tuesday, every Thursday, we're going to get together and do this. You know, every now and then we talk about each other's strengths when we're doing this broadcast. Right. And so to me, that's showing kindness, because we can talk about each other's weaknesses as we see them and all of that. But the point of the matter is, if we want to build a relationship, we must be able to come together and say, you know, I see some good qualities in this brother. And these are the qualities that I see. And that's a part of respecting, as opposed to always being negative.
Yeah, showing that kind of respect, saying it. Because see, I can say, well, yeah, I respect Jah, but I don't ever say that.
Right.
Or I don't show it in any type of form or fashion. But sometimes it's like, man, that was a good show. You know, I may say that later. I may call you and say, man, you know, that was a good show. I like this part, or it came across good, or something like that. But if you're not, and that's a personal relationship too. I think that's very important in a personal relationship. Letting that person know that you appreciate the fact that you have that relationship, you know?
Yeah. I think support is another one as well. We have to stand by someone and help them no matter what they're going through, because every one of us are going through something right now in this life. But supporting shows, hey, I'm in it with you. Now, it's not to the degree that I can feel what you're feeling, whether it's pain or whatever you're dealing with, if it's something that you're struggling with, or even if it's a success. I need to be there to say, hey, I'm with you through the good times. I'm with you through the bad times. That shows that we're building the relationship from the standpoint of when we build each other up, and when you see that I'm with you, when you know that I'm going to have your back, when I know that you have my back, then that's going to help me become a better person. So you're building me up because I can count on you, as opposed to in a lot of relationships, we don't support one another, you know, and that's a problem. That's very problematic. You talk to a lot of women and men, when they go to counseling, one of them say just the opposite. Well, my spouse, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my friend, they don't support me. They never stand by my side. They're always there, but they're never supportive of me.
Yeah, and I think what you made me think about, when you're talking men and women or different sides, you have to look at how they may consider their side. You have to have a concern about their way of seeing things. And I remember I was talking to someone and they asked me a very important question as far as I was concerned. It was a friend of mine, and they asked me, like, you know, what do you consider your greatest flaws? And I was taken aback. I'm like, wow, you know, I never thought of it like that. And so, you know, we having that conversation. Now they may consider my something else my greatest flaw. So what made me, you know, I said, well, what do you consider? I gave my explanation of what I thought. analysis of it, and it made me really think about myself. And then I asked them the same question. Then the next piece of the conversation, what do you consider my greatest flaws from what you know about me? Like you may not know a lot about me from what you see, because now between me and that person's relationship, now I'm seeing how they see me, and maybe some things they may think need to be corrected, or what they see as a flaw, and I may not see that as a flaw. They're like, well, you're too this and this, and you're high headed, whatever. And I'm like, well, now we having a conversation. I'm not just going, well, you're wrong about that. I was like, so that's how you see me. I can't tell you how you see me. And then we get in the conversation. And I was like, now it's a respectful conversation about what you see about me that's negative. That's very important, I think, in men and women relationships. What do you see? What you think is my greatest flaw? Now, I don't say S. I don't want you to give me a list and all this stuff. I want you to just the greatest flaw. We'll tackle that. So,
if you guys are listening to this broadcast, we're imploring you to call us at 361-405-6111, because we know that everyone that's listening to this broadcast, you're in some type of relationship, whether it's a family relationship, whether it's a friendship relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a work relationship, whether it's a professional relationship. We're all in relationships, and we really want to know what you think, because Kev and I, we're going to tell you what we think, but we want to know what you think about relationships and how to build them, because that's the subject. How do we build relationships? Kev, you mentioned the word communication a little bit earlier, and I want to delve into that right quick. When you said communication, that some people say in relationships, that's something that trips them up, because they don't think that communication is being done, and so they don't hear each other, they don't listen to each other, they don't understand where each other's coming from. They hear the words, but they don't really communicate. And this is why two people can be in a relationship and they both can be on two different pages, but yet the communication is not there. And I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna turn it over to you, because I know back in the day when we were younger, when we would call a young lady, we would call ourselves rapping. And that's basically talking on the phone, throwing all this Bootsy Collins and all this kind of stuff out there, I love you, baby, and all this good stuff. But the bottom line is, once you get that woman as your friend or your significant other, then all of that talk that you had at first that made that woman attractive to you, it goes out the window, you see. Right. So talk to me about communication, because you said something. I want you to talk about that.
And sometimes, see, we think conversation is communication.
Okay.
And sometimes we could be having a conversation, like I said, and we're not really communicating. I'm not getting across my point.
Okay.
Or you may not be getting across your point, and that causes conflict. Communication is more than just talking. Communication is also showing.
Okay.
An expression. And if that person knows, that's like, whether it's affection, whether it's respect, I don't have to just say, hey, I respect you. If I show you that I respect you, and everything that I do shows you respect, then you understand that I respect you. So I think the communication is even more important than the conversation at times. Some people, they only could communicate by conversation. And people will say, well, and in relationships, men and women, we have different ways of communicating. Women are a lot, as far as I'm concerned, they're a lot more advanced at conversation. They talk a lot. They have conversation. They say, well, you don't talk, you don't open up, you don't do these type of things. They want you to communicate through them in a lot of different manners. With us, we don't communicate the same language that they may want, but they have to understand that we're not like them and they're not like us. And you have to appreciate what I'm doing, and I have to appreciate how you are. You're more emotional, and you need this type of confirmation. You need confirmation. You need constant confirmation on how I feel, or affection towards you, and you need to tell me. And we're like, well, if I'm showing you, if I'm doing it, why do I need to say it? But some people, that's what they are, and then it becomes like the communication starts to break down. You're having conversations that's dry. You're having conversations with one person, and then like this, I'm gonna say this one before I turn it back over. How you converse with someone. When some people like to get loud. Some people may take that as disrespect. Or how you talk to people, that's very important. That's about respect and how they perceive. You say, well, I'm not yelling, but you're changing the inflection of your voice, and I don't like how you're talking to me. Relax. And some people don't like you to say calm down or relax.
Right.
So we communicate differently. We have different conversations.
I want to put a little ribbon on that, what you just said. The ribbon I want to put on that it has to do with listening, which is a part of communication, because many times when we have those conversations and we're communicating, we don't listen. We hear what they're saying, but we really don't listen, Because listening is not just saying, yeah, I hear the words you're saying. Listening is tying the knot and communicating to the degree where when we talk about a serious subject, that something is going to be done. Because you hear it often where people say, I tell you the same thing time and time again. Do you hear me? And the person says, yes, I do hear you. But then 5 days later, that same conversation is going on and say, well, you didn't hear me. Well, I was listening to you. Hearing and listening is two different things, you see. We have to understand that a lot of times in listening, we have to read between the lines. And see, and a lot of times we don't read between the lines. Whatever is said, we take it at face value, and that gets us in trouble a lot. So when we listen with our heart, we listen with our emotions, we listen with our mind, and we also listen to improve the relationship. See, we're not just listening because we're sitting there and it's late at night and we want people to think that we're a good listener. No, and sometimes in good listening, we have to critique what is being said when we're listening and then see how the situation can better itself. Right. So I think that's one thing that we definitely want to talk about.
Hearing and listening, that's two different things. Like I'm glad you said that. That's exactly what I was thinking. The thing about listening is that's more intent. And you're paying attention to the details. And you can I interject? Well, what did you mean when you said this? Get clarification on how that person or what that person. Now, sometimes I always tell people, you got to say what you mean and mean what you say. Yeah. So when you say what you mean, well, you knew what I meant. No, I want you to say, because if I take a word, you using that word in a different manner than it's actually received by me, then it's going to be miscommunication. Exactly. Miscommunication is when you see relationships break up. So you want to check out some of these comments that we have?
Yeah, first of all, we have Sister Barbara who says, hello, Sakina. Okay. I guess they got something going on. This the Sakina and Bob show.
Wait. Let me go up.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, there we go.
I stand corrected. All right, here we go. Lede Bishop, our good sister, says, good evening, Jah and Kev. We say good evening to you, Queen. Then Ellen Hightower says, hi, Jah and Kev. We say greetings to all of you. Barbara Royal says, hello, brothers. We say, hey, what's happening, y'all? What's going on? Now, here we go. Barbara Royal says, would you elaborate on friendship relationships between two people?
You want to jump on that right
quick? I can start and then I'll let you finish.
What was the reply?
She says...
Oh, she just said hello.
Oh, good. Okay. She said, would you elaborate on friendship relationships between two people? Friendship relationships between two people, it takes work, man. It really does, especially when you've been with a person as a friend for a long time. It's like clocking in and never clocking out. Because you begin to know that person. You must take that person as who they are. You must help that person when it comes to valuing them, your opinion. You must be there for that person. Friendship relationships between two people are crucial. We should cherish that. I think we should really love the ideal that, like, for example, I met you almost 5 or 6 years ago. Ever since day one, we've been rolling strong. And I think it's important. And so because we are friends, our relationship, we work on that. We don't just do the broadcast and that's it. We do things outside of it. We spend time together. We go out in the community. We try to do some social events. We have a lot of different aspects going on. And I think a friendship relationship should be built and worked upon as well. You just can't take it for granted.
Yeah, you have to take people to where they are and understand not everybody that claims to be your friend is actually your friend. You have to understand, like me and you, we have been talking like this before we had a show. Yeah. And this prompted us to say, man, we sit up at some event and we may be doing the audio and we'll be talking. It's like we'll have a whole, basically like a show conversation about some topic. And then before you know it, we's like, man, let's get together and do something like this and have these conversations and make them public. I think friendships is things that you have to work on. It's like you have to work on relationships. I think friendships is something that you have to work on. A lot of times people are, they disregard friends that they had or the friends that they consider new. And if you don't build that relationship, build an understanding in that relationship, then they will sometimes fall apart. Now, I think one thing I want to say, and I say this to people that I work relationships. People at my job, they're not my friend.
Okay.
Because if I can have a friend at work, but you can't hire you my friend if when I'm going through a struggle and you're not concerned about my struggle.
Come on,
you know what I'm saying? Now we have social issues that's happening in the Black community, and I may have people that's outside of the Black community that I work with. And if you are not concerned about my concerns, and when my concerns is about the safety of my people, my family, my kids, my like that, and you see these and you have no compassion about it, and you're on the other side, then are you really my friend? Because if you was like, Kev, man, this is happening and I'm concerned about this, whatever the concern may be, I'm gonna be concerned. I'm like, well, okay, what's going on, man? Blah blah blah. If I'm like, yeah, well, I'm indifferent or don't care, or I don't want to say anything about it, or I'm taking the other side, then I'm really not concerned. And you're not really my friend.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we don't really ask the crucial question: what is a friend? Because see, to me, that's going to define when one person says, "This is my friend." Sometimes we must ask that person, "Well, what do you mean by that?" Because sometimes these are just people that you know. Like you said, they have no acquaintance with you outside of maybe seeing you, and you see them at functions, and you say, "Oh, okay, that's my friend," but you know nothing about that person. But in your heart, because a lot of us are so lonely, Kev, we want to have somebody that's around us that we can say, "I have so many friends," and so that sounds good to my ego. So now I'm popular because I'm thinking that everybody is my friend when these people don't give a damn about you. Yeah. But you have to, like she says, elaborate on friendship. We must ask each person, well, what do you consider as a friend?
Yeah, well, first ask yourself, like, what do you consider a friend? Like, I tell people at work, they say, well, I consider you my friend, and this is actual conversation. And I say, well, we cool. And I think they don't understand that, talking about other people. I'm cool with you at work, but we're not friends. I haven't been to your house. You haven't been to my house. You don't even know my kid's name. Okay. So how are we friends? And I think it's a difference between being friends and being friendly. Okay. We have to distinguish between that, because even the people in our community, we could say, well, yeah, I'm friendly. You're friendly with that person, so that person is cool. But you don't really know them. If you have all these a plethora of friends, then when something happens to you, why you have no one to turn to?
That's true. That's true. Good cooking. We also have to throw this word in there, Kev, commitment. We have to look at commitment as one of those walls that builds relationships. We're going to get back to the comments because they're flowing in. We wish some of you would give us a call. We want the phones ringing. We want your comments coming in. But, we have to look at this idea of commitment. Keeping our promises. When we say we're going to do something, and I'm not saying everything we say is going to come to pass, but when I say commitment, I'm talking about keeping the promises that you have and being there, as you mentioned earlier, for that person when they're having it tough. That's a commitment right there. Right. In a relationship, it's a commitment. You often hear the man or the woman who says, if they're in a relationship, well, they're not committed to me as they were at one time, because they don't spend time together. They don't do things together. So the commitment is waning, and both parties can see it, but one of them brings it out. Then instead of listening and communicating, the other one will probably make some kind of defense as far as, well, why they're not committed. But commitment takes a lot of work, as we're saying, and we have to understand that commitment is important if you're going to build a relationship. You have to be committed to that person.
Yeah. If it's A and B, and you're talking about two different parties, groups, whatever, and I have to build myself to say, okay, what do I need? I got to have character. I got to be concerned about my character, what I'm exemplifying to you, what I'm projecting outside of myself. I want my word to be bond. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I have to hold myself to do it. Or if I'm not able to do it, it's nothing wrong with not being able to do something you said you was going to do, but I got to go to you and say, hey, man, I was trying to do this. I wanted to do this, but something is wrong. So because I'm concerned about how I reflect, my reflection to others, how I'm projecting myself to others, and how that reflection may be on his side. If I said I was going to do this and I don't do it, and I don't call you, if I said I needed to borrow something and I borrowed it and I told you when I was going to give it back, then I have to keep my word. If I need it longer, I have to go to you and say, hey, man, I know I said this, but can I, don't just keep it and ghost you and stuff like that. So that tarnishes a friendship because you're not being upfront, you're not being truthful, you're not being honest, and it could be a valid reason, but I have to give that valid reason to you because I owe you something. I gave you my word, so I owe you my actions of my words.
Okay, Kev, you can start reading the comments now. I didn't have mine.
So Josiah, I appreciate you showing up, brother. He said so many relationships turn sour quickly over small disagreements, then both parties start dissing each other nonstop 24/7.
I think I talked about that last week. I was saying, don't let it be with you and I, where if we have a disagreement, I'm going to start doing my podcast and I'll talk bad about you, or you'll do your podcast. That's what a lot of these people do on these podcasts and on YouTube. They start off in their friends, like a relationship in a marriage or a girlfriend, boyfriend. And I understand why, but sometimes it just baffles my mind. Two people can be in love, inseparable at first. then something happens, whether it's down through the years or something happens, and then they are at odds to where they want to kill each other. And it's like, if you and I, even if you and I say, hey, let's stop doing this broadcast next week because the next month because we can't do it. I'm not going to start doing broadcasts about you in a negative light just because we can't do it. That's what I'm trying to say. And he's saying over disagreements. And then we start, then you do your, like I said, you do a podcast about me. Jah was never no good. I was carrying him. I didn't like him in the first place. And I do my podcast, if it wasn't for me, Kev wouldn't be, and this is how these people are doing now. And like he said, the disagreements, we diss each other. It's got to stop, man.
It's subliminal.
Yeah.
I used to do podcasts with people, but people ain't real. And I ain't saying no names. And then it's like you sitting there listening. You know how, other people may not know. And, but and that's not being real with you. If I got an issue with you, I should bring that issue to you.
Yeah.
And I see this with a lot of celebrities. I hear some of them say this. If that person had a problem with me, why didn't they pick up the phone and call me? Because they have my number instead of doing it on a show or public. And that's not showing the respect to somebody else. Because if I have a problem with Jah, or Jah had a problem with me or something that I said, and he was like, man, I felt like this, and this. You should be able to, if we really have a friendship, you should be able to tell me. And a friend shouldn't just be a yes person.
Yeah.
I don't want to offend that person. Sometimes you see that.
Yeah.
I tell my friends, I said this before, like some of my friends that was in relationships and their wife was at home and we may have went out somewhere, and then I see them trying to holler at some woman, and I say, they're like, yeah, man, what you think? I think you should look at your picture of your wife on your phone, bro. And it's like, man, And I'm like, nah, bro, because you're my friend. I'm giving you the advice that I would want you to reciprocate with me. If I'm thinking out, if you think I'm doing something out of pocket, you can't be afraid to give people advice or voice your opinion, and they should be receptive to you voicing your opinion, no matter whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of people do me this way. I'll just take this computer for an example. If I disagree with them, what they do is they want to take their computer and leave and never come back again. It's like that's just childishness. Is what it is.
Leslie, I'm sorry, sister, we just waited. The number is 361-405-6111. Again, that's 361-405-6111. And I hope you do get to call in. And we have Rashid Shabazz. He said, peace, my good brothers. I remember reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Let me hit Seymour. He said it pointed out to seek first to understand than to be understood. That's a great comment. I heard that one before. He said that hit like a ton of bricks. He said most want to be understood, not understand. Thus the disconnect. Notice that agreeing isn't mentioned. The understanding is mellow. Okay. I appreciate that comment, brother. Always coming in with some wisdom, man. I appreciate Mondrea showing up. He said, come to the play Saturday. Okay. We're gonna get that at the end, and we appreciate you saying it. Yeah, like with Brother Shabazz, you want to hit on that one, man?
Well, yeah, because I think what it boils down to is, in order to do what he says, which is looking at ourselves, most people want to be understood but not understand. But a lot of that also has to do with, you have to know yourself, or at least work on yourself before trying to know others. And this is why a lot of times I hear not so much Bible verses or religious tones, but they always say that we should love other people and we want to be there for other people, be other people's friends, but we're not even friends to ourselves. Right. We don't know how we are. See, it's like this. Now this is how we are as men. We see a woman and she looks pretty. She looks nice to us. She has a nice figure. So we want to be with her, but we know nothing about what she's about. We know nothing about what we're about. So we get into this situation, and then somebody else sees that same woman and they have the same ideology, and she may not be all that. So she goes with them. And now here we are trying to kill each other over something that if we would have looked at ourselves and said, wait, how am I? When I get into relationship, friendship, like we talk about how we are. You tell me a lot of times before we do these broadcasts, you tell me things about yourself. In other words, you're saying, this is what I'm doing. You even say, these are the things I got to work on. See, that's what it's about. And then when you get into a relationship with somebody, you can't just jump in there because of the looks, the visible things. And that's a problem right there. And this is why a lot of us the disconnect that he's talking about is crucial.
A lot of we talk about personal relationships or like the initial relationship, trying to have a relationship with somebody. You talk about a man approaching a woman and he sees a woman, and how you do that, how respectful you are. That should go a long way. Sometimes it's not. It doesn't matter, and a woman will respond to the, cat calls and stuff like that. That tells me a lot about that woman. Because if a woman say, nah, and she don't even turn her head, because you're not approaching me the right way. A woman should have standards, and you should exemplify some type of standards. You should have an understanding of what you're looking for, even if you think that woman is loose or whatever. You should, excuse me, blah blah blah. You should know how. And I think a lot of people don't know how to do the things we used to do when we had to come up, because now with social media, people want to hit the inbox and they want to say this, and then you don't even really want to get to know the woman. You telling her what you want to do to her or do with her, instead of getting to know her as a person. And she has to see that red flag and say, okay, yeah, oh mama, you look good, blah blah blah, okay. So then she got to turn that conversation. I know a woman has to deflect. How a man comes at her, she has to do kung fu moves. Right. Don't touch, don't this,
right.
And okay, so tell me about you. Tell me what is it that and basically you want to know what is it that you got to offer me, for me. And that's the conversation that needs to be had in a certain way, or a conversation that needs to be understood.
Right. Let's also talk about this elephant in the room that a lot of times when we talk about building relationships, we don't talk about. Let's talk about sacrifice. We have to sacrifice. Now, I'm not saying that everything that someone wants to do, whether it's a friendship, regardless of the type of relationship, there has to be some type of sacrifice. We don't always see everything the same. We have odds when we look at certain aspects, but then we always come to some kind of mutual agreement. He may call me, guys, and he'll say, Jahi, let's do a broadcast on this. And I'll say, no, Kev, let's do a broadcast on that. So we go back and forth, and then we kind of, what we do is we meet somewhere in the middle where we both get our ways, but at some particular time we both have to make sacrifices, and that's what makes the world go round. You can't have it your way all the time. I can't have it my way all the time. And a lot of us growing up now, we don't know what sacrifice is. We could care less about sacrifice.
And it's a give and take type thing. And sometimes when you're in a relationship, you have to give and not always take. And if sometimes you may have to give a lot more. And I had somebody very intelligent as far as I'm concerned. And she told me, she said, she was talking to somebody about the relationships between a man and a woman. And the other person was saying, I feel like, it's not 50-50 all the time. I'm giving more. And the person said, well, you're supposed to. Sometimes it's not going to be 50-50. Sometimes it got to be 60-40. Sometimes it got to be 40-60. Whatever it takes to come up with 100% between us. Because if you're looking for 50-50, men and women are not the same. It's going to be some things that if I'm okay, well, hey, baby, I heard a noise. It's your turn to go out and check that out. You know what I'm saying? It can't be that. That's my job. Your job is maybe something else.
Exactly.
So you want to read the rest of these comments? Man, we got them coming in.
Okay, where we at? Ellen, she says, my twin and I are womb mates. But most importantly, she's my best friend. We decided when we went into business together that nothing would create a problem for us. We don't always agree, but we always respect and love each other. That right there is the highlight of this broadcast tonight. She said that if we could end the broadcast right now. Sister Hightower, you just stole the show, because she's telling the truth. They went into something together, and before they even got it going, they made a pact. And that's what it's all about, man. The next comment says, Kev and Jah, can you place the call number or call-in number in the chat, please?
And our brother Rashid Shabazz put it in there if you could check it out. Again, that number is 361-405-6111, and you will be screened when you call, so you will still hear the show.
I think we got one coming in now. I'm going to see if we can. They're being screened now. Once it stops saying screening, we're going to let them through.
Brother Shabazz said compromise.
There it is. Still says screening, so let's see if I can hit this and we can get them in.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to the Jah and Kev show. Caller, you're on the air. What's on your mind? It says this is Leslie Robinson.
She's not saying anything?
Nah. Okay, I got her wide open as far as her volume here. Okay, she said that she's calling into the broadcast that we're doing currently. And yeah, I have her in, but nothing is going on. But we'll continue to broadcast. Hopefully, this is not a technical issue that's going to last throughout the broadcast. But all we can say is call back. We'll see if we can get you because everything on my end looks good. So last time I know I messed it up, but guys, I'm doing what I got to do today. Make sure I redeem myself. But Kev, when we talk about relationships, building relationships, we have to learn how to solve problems together. And so when we talk about solving problems together, y'all, we're talking about that's how we build each other up. That's how we build a relationship. It's not my responsibility to always solve the problem. It's not the other person's responsibility to always solve the problem. It's both of us sitting down and saying, this is a calamity. This is what we're dealing with. How do we fix this? And then we take the intellect of each other and we say, let's put that on the table. And I bet you're going to come up with a solution that's going to be forthright, that can help you with that problem. At least it may not solve it, but you'll be able to get through the problem. But a lot of times we don't always sit down and solve problems together. We do everything else together. We share the finances together. We share the children together. We share all these other aspects of a relationship together. But when a problem comes about, then we don't like to sit down and say, let's solve the problem.
Yeah, and I think what happened on the phone thing, I think we just lost power on the phone thing. So hopefully it'll power back up, and we'll get the phone line back up, and we'll take any calls that y'all have. And I know you say you like what Ellen was saying about her roommate and them having a business, but let's talk about not just personal relationships. Let's talk about organization type. In our community, we have to have relationships with each other in different manners. And it should seem personal because when you got a black business, you want to patronize a black business. Our relationship with those outside of our community, but they're in our community doing business, needs to be different from those that look like us and those that don't. So that's a different type of relationship that we have to learn how to build with each other and learn how to manage with others.
And that relationship also has to be reciprocal. In other words, that relationship with the businesses means that we don't just go to the business just because they're black. We have to approach them and look at our condition and bring some problems and issues that they can help us in a little way, so that our communities won't continue to slumber and be the way they are. Because sometimes we forget that relationships are reciprocal from the standpoint of both parties have to give and take. And it means that even in the business world, the black businesses that we support, and I'm not saying if someone does us wrong one time, we never support them again as a black business. All I'm saying is sometimes the businesses, they have to realize too that they have a responsibility too. It's not just us dumping money into their laps, making them, fruitful and make sure that they have all they need from the wealth perspective. It should go both ways. So I think that's very important when you're talking about building. So we building a relationship together. We're helping clean up our community. We're helping putting schools in this community. We're doing everything that we can do so that our communities can thrive and be safe to live in. So again, we're still working on the phone lines.
So what is the PIN number to get in on the phone?
Let's see here, 873-472. So y'all just hang in there with us, because we're gonna do this on the fly.
Yeah.
We're gonna do this on the fly.
Okay, so we're back in. So Leslie, if you want to call back in, we got power back on our lines. I had to reconnect to the call-in studio.
I'm looking out for you, Sister Leslie. I'm looking out for you.
If you wanted to call in, I mean, you had something to say, and we want to be heard. So the communication between us, because remember, it's communication. We have to communicate to others that we are unified. We have to communicate with each other that it's okay for you to open a business. You shouldn't have trepidations about opening a business, because we will support you as long as you're doing. We have standards.
Okay,
you have to have standards, but you have to have also understand that your standards can't be higher or as high with us as it is with others, because they have a generational gap. Multi-generational gaps on owning businesses and conducting businesses. They have a wealth gap between us. So we are taking baby steps. But in order for those baby steps to work, just like when you're working with a toddler on how to walk, you're not expecting them to get up and just walk like somebody that's been walking for years.
That's right.
So we have to have patience with each other.
Come on, Sister Leslie. Talk to us.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Queen.
All right, so what you have for us?
I'm sorry?
All right, what you have for us, Les?
Okay, okay. I wanted to talk about, of course, the relationship, and there is no manual for a relationship. Okay, there's no manual. Okay, so of course I'm married, and people express and receive love differently.
You
Okay,
said
having a
they see
mutual
love
understanding.
differently. You said they see love
Huh?
differently. You said they see love differently.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. People see love differently. Yes, a healthy relationship with a spouse should be built on a foundation: communication, understanding, respect, affection and appreciation, patience, grace, quality time, and teamwork.
Wow.
That's pretty
Okay.
good.
Yeah, that's And how long have you been married?
I've been married. It'll be This is my second marriage. I've been married before. I was married 11 years, and this time we're just making 3 years.
Okay. And congratulations on that.
Really, really.
And yeah, I appreciate the call,
Thank you.
sister. And we're going on that conversation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
She hit the nail on the head.
Okay, you're welcome.
So she hit the nail on the
Okay,
head.
bye bye.
She mentioned all the ingredients that go into a relationship, especially the patience part. Sometimes when we look at relationships, we want everyone to be like us, and that's problematic. We want the person that we're with, or we want the group that we're with, we want the community that we're with to be just like us, and that's not the way it is.
Yeah.
So we have to be patient. Even with us, we had to get to where we are. That's
Yeah.
why when we meet people and these people aren't as knowledgeable in certain areas, we can't just kick them out because they're not on the level that we are. I see a lot of that to do, especially on social media. I see a lot of these guys throwing knowledge around like they're the king of the hill and they know everything. And it's like, you weren't always like that.
Right.
So
right.
why are you being that way? And like she said, when you meet that person, once you get in that relationship, you have to be willing to know that it's going to require some patience. You can't just expect that everybody's going to be just like you or that ideal mate.
Yeah. If you get with someone on superficial qualities, appearance and stuff like that, like you say, that woman you're trying to holler at, or that woman getting spoken to by some man and she looking at how he looks, that's superficial. That doesn't work in a relationship. You have to bring the other baggage or the things in that bag that Leslie was talking about. If you want to, and you shouldn't have to build a man. I heard, and you shouldn't have to, you say, okay, well, he has these flaws. I'm gonna build this man. You shouldn't have to build a man, because now you're trying to. Marcus Garvey says something like that. I think Frederick Douglass had a quote about trying to change a grown man as opposed to building a child.
Right.
You shouldn't have to do that. Not just because this woman looks good. I'm saying, you know what? Well, she has all these flaws. I could correct that.
Right.
And then what happens is, you down the line, you're constantly trying to correct something and build something that's not there. And sometimes that person's going to push back, and then you're going to have resentment. And when y'all get into those inevitable situations where you're arguing and debating, you're going to start putting that person down.
Well, I'm going to cut you off and take one of your. I'm going to take a page out of your book. You always talk about warning signs, and when it never ceases. When we have a broadcast, you bring up a warning sign, and a lot of times, that's true. But it's so true now, because case in point, I know many people who meet people who are in relationships. Before they got in the relationship, there were warning signs. They disobeyed those warning signs, and now they thought that once they got in the relationship, they could change that person. And now that person is doing much worse than they were when they met them. But you knew that before you got involved. But because we want to change that person, we want them to, be like we want them to be, and enough sex is not going to change them. Enough love and enough money, kindness, no matter what gifts. The case is, and that warning sign that's hitting home now, because sometimes those warning signs are that which we don't look at. All we say is, she's cute, he's cute, and then 5 babies later, then it's a whole nother ball game now, because that cuteness ain't gonna work. What's in that heart?
That's superficial. When you're looking at the outside appearance, that physical appearance, and that's the first thing that attracts people. They look at somebody first, and then that makes them want to talk, or they look at how that person looks and how then they respond to that person's conversation, because that person don't look the part. You're not going to respond to their conversation. This person could be the greatest person you ever met, but you don't, because they're not fitting the description, then you don't want to hear anything from them. And somebody else could be the best looking person that tried to ever holler at you, and you're receptive to them on the basis of that. And then when you had the conversations that you should be having regardless, you're going to see there's nothing there,
Now, I want to say something this is hilarious, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but B.B. King, rest his soul, he had a song called The Thrill Is Gone. This is for people that's been in relationships for a long time. Basically, the song was saying this man meets a woman, and after so many years, it's not what it used to be. That thrill is gone. Now, as we get old, estrogen, testosterone, all of this stuff, it takes its effect, but we have to be creative to make sure that thrill doesn't just go all the way out. Right. We have to do things together. When we first meet each other, we make special dates and we do things that are cute, but then as we are in a long-term relationship, that kind of wears off. Now we have so many children and we're getting older and we don't want to do anything, and then we get angry, then we want to go do other things as opposed to trying to keep that fire lit. So right. I'm saying make special occasions, make time for that person, and let them know that they're still the same person. Although they're getting older, you still can do things that's going to cherish that relationship. And I think sometimes we just grow old together, and then we separate, or we just, you go over to a person's house and the man is in one room, the woman is in the other room. That's their life. Right. Whereas it shouldn't be like that, because they're not trying to make sure that thrill never goes away.
And I think some of that is in the bag that Leslie was talking about. Some of those, the list that she gave, the ingredients that she gave for a healthy relationship. And I think sometimes it depends on what the thrill was. Because once you get with somebody,
come on, Kev.
Sometimes when you get with somebody, it should be more of a thrill built.
Right.
It shouldn't be just, this is just one thing, or this, it should be, man, I like more about, because that person gets to know more about you, and they can say, well, the little things. You never see people up at the funeral and they talk about this thrill. They talk about this person was this and this person was that. They mean a lot, because that means that they knew you. If they say, well, this person was funny, that doesn't hit, right? Whatever it was. But when he say the thrill is gone, what is the thrill? And that thrill, if that thrill disappears,
right,
your estrogen disappears, or
testosterone,
libido is not there like it used to be, and it's going to be natural. But it should be other things that's thrilling to you.
It really should be
to you. And if it's not, then you're superficial. Your relationship was superficial.
And Kev, what about this? Encouraging each other's growth. In other words, just telling someone something that's positive, that's true, not superficial. Like, I've noticed since we've been doing this broadcast through the years, I appreciate your knowledge that's rising, your intellect that you're getting into more of some of the broadcast that we're doing. You're making more sense. You're being more articulate. I think that's a beautiful thing. And you're growing, and so it's like that's a good thing to tell people, as opposed to, well, it's the same thing every other week. I know what he's going to do. It's the same thing every week. Why can't we tell each other? Why can't we encourage each other's growth? In other words, back in the day, you didn't used to do this, but let's say if you were a hellraiser, and I said, well, you know what? You calmed down a lot. That's a beautiful thing. That you should be celebrating that instead of just taking it for granted.
Yeah, so what y'all just said, Kevin, you're not as stupid sounding as you was when we first started. You don't sound as dumb as you used to sound. So
it's crazy, y'all.
But I appreciate that, man. And, it's likewise. I think, and it's crazy because I was looking at probably our first show, and I was like, man, that's awful. Compared to now, at that time, it was there. I was like, man, that's kind of like, man, we was like making eye contact, you ready to, but it's grown, and the show flows. It has a different flow to it, and I appreciate that. I mean, all of that, man. I think we have a good camaraderie here. But when we're talking about relationships, you have to constantly work. I hear people say that you have to constantly work on relationships. Now, I do want to get into relationships outside of just personal relationships. I know Lede has a comment. You want to start reading some of them, man?
Sure. Sister Lede, she says, when you have strong feelings for that person, the thrill never leaves. She said the thrill just gets better. Yeah, okay. That's so true with certain people's mindsets.
Certain people.
Yeah, but some people, they feel like when you get to a certain age and things start sagging and things start, breaking down, then a lot of people, they want to think that they're someone that they're not, instead of accepting that age is a beautiful thing. Aging is beautiful, but because we've been so indoctrinated with this always stay young, wanting to dye their hair, wanting to look young, and all this stuff. That really destroys that thrill that she's talking about.
Yeah.
But she's right; it should never leave. But that's just what happens.
Man, and you just do something, because I was thinking about talking about moving it on to something else. But you have to love yourself, man. You have to have a relationship with yourself in the mirror. You have to, and I see women talking about, and I see men doing it too, because men may be dyeing they beard and stuff like this, or dyeing their hair. They're not accepting the age, and that comes with society, because people say, I have a brother, man, they're like, man, I tried to let my white show, but people say I look old. I'm like, brother, well, you look mature. You look your age.
Yeah.
You have to accept yourself and wear that acceptance. You have to, this is me and this is who I am. But, now we have all this BBL stuff. We have the dyes. We're doing all these things, and we're trying to, make ourselves stay young. And you can stay young being healthy, as opposed to doing things that's just a reflection in the mirror. You dyeing your hair black. That's not making you. You could think it makes you look younger, but you ask somebody, how old do I look? And they're gonna say, like, and they say older than you are, then it's a problem. If I'm 42 and they say, oh, you look like about 50, you look good, then it's a problem. But it's like you're fighting to stay young. You're fighting to be young and do young people things. We see women that be at the club trying to look like they're 30 again, and here they're in their 50s. And then you see dudes doing that. Now they're trying to say they're going into the younger people's fashion. They want to use the same lingo. They want to stay current to what the times are. And you have to be proud of who you are.
Right. See, a lot of that, though, Kevin, when it all boils down to that, this is another broadcast. I want to throw this in before we get back to the subject. They know that clock is winding down. They know that they're older and that it's not that many more years left. So instead of facing reality and living a good life and saying, this is beautiful, I'm going to go out in fashion, they want to try to turn back the hands of time. And I think there was a song, I think I said it on one broadcast, Tyrone Davis, if I could turn back the hands of time. You can't turn back the hands of time. But love who you are. Accept that, okay? Build relationships, even in the age that we're in. It's never too late to keep building the relationships. There's always a nail that you can put in. It's always some plaster you can put up. It's always something metaphorically that we can put up that's going to help us when it comes to building relationships.
Right. And I think Music Soul Child had a song, one of those songs I like, man. It's like, when your hair turns gray. But see, it's not just, we're talking about yourself, but then that other person too. That person is going to be older. And sometimes you got to tell that person, I like your hair.
Yeah.
And if you're concerned about everybody else, you're concerned about the wrong thing. You should be concerned about what your significant other likes about you and what they're willing to accept. Now, if she's saying, hey, you need to do this, or he telling you, hey, you need to do that. But if it's things that come with age, then they're not accepting you. It's different than letting yourself go as opposed to letting yourself grow older. If they're concerned with you getting older, then that's life, and that's a problem. If she's concerned about you getting older, and I'm talking about the normal things comes with getting older, then y'all don't really have a good relationship. She don't understand. It's not a good understanding in there.
Right. And we should be protecting ourselves, our relationship as we're building. We should be protecting our relationships from selfishness and dishonesty. Because a lot of us in relationships, we act like little kids. In other words, if we can't get our way, we pout. We don't speak for days. We act like little bitty spoiled brats. And you will never build a relationship on that. Sometimes we have to realize that you're not going to always get what you want. I'm not going to always get what I want, no matter how I could taste something or how I can see myself doing something. Sometimes the answer is no. And when it's no, we can't fall out with each other. We can't go at each other's throats just because one person wanted to have their way and the other person said, hey, that's how it is. And that's not what building relationships is all about. It's about understanding that sometimes you get what you want and many times you don't get what you want, but can you still maintain?
And like the brother Shabazz said earlier, compromise. And I think I remember, the reason I chuckled, I remember a relationship I was in, and we back, whatever normal stuff. And I was like, well, you know what? I don't care. I don't even want to talk no more. And then she's like, okay, bon appetit. When that was like, okay, go on and eat. You go on and eat the food I prepare. Eat in the morning, because you being a butthead or whatever.
Right.
Then you got to realize. And I was like, oh, I thought about it. And I'm like, damn, bon appetit. What? I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should talk. And it's like, hey, that got my attention. Like, and it's like, you got to realize and appreciate what that person brings to the household. You have to appreciate that. Now, Ellen said, she said, I like me with dark hair. And that's fine. If you like yourself with dark hair, I'm saying, you have to come to grips that the society, I'm saying the reason that people like you, you're supposed to like how you used to look, but you have to accept and appreciate your maturity, because that's what the gray in hair comes in. And I see a lot of this is a problem, I think, in our society.
It is.
A lot of women dye their hair, and I see it with celebrities because, like, say, like when COVID hit, I'm gonna bring that up. A lot of these celebrities, when they wouldn't get in their hairdresser and all this stuff, you start seeing them with gray hair. They coming on social media and it's like they mustache is gray and it was always black because they trying to stay young. And and it's like, man, dude look like P. Diddy look like Danny Glover now, and it's like people making comments because these people, they're doing out spending all this money to make themselves look younger, and your mind is programmed. You're allowing your mind to be programmed to only accept yourself in a certain way. You're going to be, I'm going to tell you, Alan, you were going to be beautiful no matter what color your hair is. You have to accept that, and and people will tell you that if you allow them to, unless they have a conflicted mindset.
Yeah, and that comes from working, building ourselves. We have to build a relationship with our own selves. See, sometimes we talk about building relationships with other people, but we don't talk about building relationships with ourselves.
Right.
There's many things in my life that I know I need to work on. Well, then when I start taking those things away that's making me a better person, I'm actually building a relationship with my own self. Yeah. And we don't often talk about that because we're too busy looking out the window at other people and talking about what they do, as opposed to saying, hey, I know that I need to quit lying so much. I want to stop lying all the time. Just lying just because. I got to stop procrastinating. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it and stop telling people, knowing I'm not going to do it. Lying to a person's face. You going to do this? Yeah, I see you there. Knowing you ain't going to do it. And these are the things that we need to work on ourselves. So we must build our own lives up first before we can build up any kind of relationship. Because if I go into a relationship all screwed up the way I am, that's going to make that relationship very, very, what we call trepidation with fear. And that's going to be a bad thing.
I wonder if a liar know that they such a liar, to say that, if they accept that and say, well, you know what, I need to change that. Because at what point, haven't you changed that from the start? I think a lying person is a conniving person. They're trying to manipulate. And I think that's how they get through life. And if that's how they're trying to get through life, I think they haven't accepted the fact that you are who you are, and you need to build something better if you're not happy with who you are, instead of trying to pull the sheep or the wool over somebody's eyes.
Yeah, that's terrible, man.
And do you want to read some of these?
Sure. What we got?
We got Barbara.
She says, I love my gray. And then Ellen says, I like me with dark hair. Then Barbara says, it's my wisdom, bling. Right. And then Ladae Bishop says, I've grown to embrace my salt and pepper. And then Ladae Bishop says, self-love starts with you.
Right.
Couldn't say it more better than that.
Yeah.
Starts with you.
Man, really we got a few. I just want to say this, man. Okay. Also, the importance of relationships between organizations and the Black community. Everything that we're saying about personal, of course, this jumped to personal relationships. If Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois built a better relationship, a respect for one another, even though they had differences, we will probably be way more advanced than we are now. If Malcolm X, Martin Luther King built a better relationship and even a respect for one another, then we will be probably far more advanced than we are now as a people. And that could go, you could keep going down the line. And this is just groups in our community. If the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, if they built a better rapport with each other and showed us that, hey, yeah, we're two different organizations, but we're cool with each other, and we don't have to be friends, but we're cool with each other, and we're not against each other. And I'm not talking about them in particular, but every organization that's out there that has the same goals, even though they have different plans on reaching that goals or different mindsets on how we reach that goal, that shows a lot to the rest of us that we all need to work together and to implement some type of plan to reach a goal that we have set for each other and for ourselves and for our people.
That is so profound. I was just watching last night a documentary on Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois and the way they went at each other, man. It was brutal, but yet they're in the same situation because oppression doesn't care what you believe. Oppression is going to oppress you. White supremacy doesn't care if you're a Baptist or a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew or an atheist. they don't care about that, but we get caught up in that,
Yeah.
you know, and we gotta be more wise in our understanding
and learn how to build these type of relationships in our community, because that's going to strengthen our community, you know. And it's not about, like you said, all of them have different beliefs and all that, but it doesn't matter. If you're trying to build a fence, a Muslim not going to build a fence any different than a Christian's going to build a fence, or a woman's going to build a fence than a man, or whatever money you got in your pocket. We all need to build a fence, and that's how we need to build a fence, to keep intruders out of the village and solidify the village from within. You know, we have to learn how to have working relationships with each other. Like we talked about that earlier, having working relationships with people. We need to have working relationships within our community to get things done, because we all have the same goal. We all want freedom, justice, and equality. I don't care how you're talking about doing it, but we have to understand that we want the same things, and you may think about getting it in a different way, and I may talk about getting it in a different way. Then you do it your way. And I watched the documentary over the weekend, and it's the Black Power mixtapes, and it's very good. And it's Stokely Carmichael talking about Martin Luther King's approach, and he said, "I don't agree with nonviolence. I'm about Black Power." And I know from another documentary that Martin Luther King didn't understand the Black Power movement. That was the youth and Black empowerment. So he asked to talk to them. He asked to talk to Stokely Carmichael, who was part of SNCC at that time, and his chairperson, and they came to Martin Luther King's house, and they spoke for like 3 to 4 hours. He invited, because he said, "I need to know what this new stuff is about that y'all are talking about," you know, and they explained it. And this is when Martin started to change. When people want to attribute to it, but this is when Martin actually started to rethink, okay, these young people, they're different. They're not talking the way that they're not listening to my speeches like the other people were. Now they're on something different. I have to understand what it is. Even if I don't agree with it, I have to understand where they're at and try to meet them where they're at, and maybe do my thing, let them do their thing, instead of letting people talk me out of being friendly with them, or being cool with them, being respectful with them.
And out of all these examples that we're giving, all these examples that was in the past, we should look at those examples and capitalize off of them. And that's how we build relationships. We capitalize and see what worked and what didn't work. And being ostracized and going against one another, that never worked for us. So we shouldn't even carry that now into the 21st century. So Brother Mondrell said something earlier about the play. I'll say it and we'll get out of here. There's a play that I've written and produced. It's called Broken Glass. It's going to be at Highlands High School this Saturday. That's June the 6th. It starts at 5 o'clock. The doors open at 4 o'clock. It's a play about abuse and what we have to do to become better people, because all of us have come in contact with abuse, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, molestation, neglect, whatever abuse you want to call. We all have known someone, or we've been abused, and if we don't correct it now, we're going to carry that to our graves, and that's what the hope of the play is to come out. So support us this Saturday at Highlands High School in the auditorium. You can get tickets on Eventbrite, and hopefully we'll see you there, and just, let us know, hey, I watched the Jah and Kev show. I'm supporting y'all, because y'all always talk about supporting one another. So support us with that as well.
All right. And I'm going to say one more thing. Teresa said we have to appreciate our differences. I appreciate that. And we appreciate everyone that showed up. Like I said before in the last show, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jah and Kev Show. Just go and hit the subscribe button. Give us some followers. Give us some strength, so we'll be able to do more things and represent y'all. So peace.